Welcome back to the OSM channel. In today's video I plan to rebuild this 1980s on the ground style log splitter. Now I received this log splitter from my neighbor about a year ago. I tried it out. There are many things I dislike about it. For one, it's low to the ground, very uncomfortable to split with. The exhaust literally spits right in the operator's face. It's difficult to move around the yard. The wedge design is poor because logs and rounds commonly get stuck in the wedge. So there's a lot of room for improvement with this log splitter. So what I plan to do is I plan to modify it because the guts of this unit are still good. The engine's still good. The main seal's not leaking. The hydraulics, well, the hydraulic pump is good. The hydraulic tank is good. There is a leaking hydraulic line I have to replace, but here's what I plan to do. Mind you, this is a very crude drawing, but I plan to leave the engine and associated hydraulic components low to the ground, which will keep the center of gravity low, thus hopefully prevent the machine from tipping over. I plan to add new wheels. I picked up these, I think these are 10-inch wheels from Harbor Freight. $10 a piece, can't beat that. I'd like to build a frame up off the main surface where the engine and the hydraulic components sit, which will then attach to the main splitting I-beam. This will bring our splitting beam and tray, which I would like to add a tray, up off the ground. So it's going to be much more comfortable to operate. I would like to improve the wedge. We'll add a post directly underneath the wedge. I may have to do some cross bracing to kind of brace everything up, and I would like to add a trailer hitch. So I have big plans for this little splitter. First thing I need to do is try and remove some weight off the frame because I need to disassemble everything, do some cutting, grinding, welding. We need to add that new frame to this unit. So first thing I'm going to do is remove the engine, try and remove the tires, and cut off the old spindles, and we'll see how things go from there. Well, after modifying this log splitter for about a week on and off, I can proudly say that I think I'm finally finished and we are ready for a test. Now, before we put this unit to work and give it a real test, I want to talk about all the modifications I completed to this unit. So the first thing I did, I rose the main splitting beam up off the ground to a comfortable working height. I added a nice large flat splitting table, and I also added a small piece of angle. I'm going to call this a shelf on the operator's side of the splitter. This 2-inch shelf may not look like much, but this drastically reduces the amount of wood that falls directly on the ground. So this little piece of angle, big back saver. I also modified the splitting wedge. The old splitting wedge was just a real skinny wedge, and I found that pieces would commonly get jammed in there, and it just wasn't that effective. So I've added some ears that kind of flare off the main wedge, and the idea is the initial part of the wedge is nice and narrow and sharp, so that'll break into the wood, and then those flared out ears should, in theory, really spread the wood wide open. So I'm curious to see how well that's going to work. Worst comes to worst, I'll just grind that off and modify the design. Aside from that, I added a small trailer hitch, so this unit could be towed behind my little Craftsman LT2000 lawnmower. This is one of my favorite modifications here. I rerouted the exhaust. One of my biggest complaints of this unit initially was that the exhaust would blow right in the operator's face. So I found a piece of, this is stainless steel, like 1-inch flex tubing, and it's really intended for rerouting exhaust. And that's exactly what I did. I actually welded together a little plate, put a little gasket on there, welded a piece of 1-inch tubing, and then I clamped that directly onto this stainless steel exhaust pipe, and I redirected the exhaust away from the operator and towards the back of the machine. Something I love about this design is the front end is light enough as to where I can pick up the front and just pretty easily maneuver the machine around to where I need it to be. So, you know, if the wind is blowing this way, for example, I could easily pick up the front, just spin it 180 degrees and have the exhaust go away from me. I replaced the main hydraulic line as well as the low pressure lines that return hydraulic fluid back to the reservoir, as well as the line that feeds into the actual pump. Now, I am deathly afraid of hydraulic injection injuries, and in order to help prevent that from happening, obviously, for one, I've replaced the main hydraulic hose, but in addition to that, I added a piece of nylon chafing gear. Now, this piece of nylon that goes over the main hydraulic hose serves two purposes. For one, it helps to protect that hose from chafing, and two, should this hose rupture, the idea is that the nylon jacket will help contain the hydraulic fluid and prevent it from shooting up and out. So, yeah, you really got to be careful when it comes to hydraulics. Aside from that, I added a couple new wheels, welded on some new studs, obviously, because, you know, I had to remanufacture the whole frame, and I think that's just about it. So without further ado, let's start this bad boy up and see what it can do.